Hello again. I am John. I am with you with another video. Today we are gonna discuss Riyadh Air pilot salaries. Yeah, I've recorded a similar video in 2024. Actually, it was January 2024, exactly 2 years after. Now we have valid data. In this video, I'll be comparing what I recorded in 2024 and what's actual data that we have in 2026, and we will see the real information that is broadcasted all around the pilot community. Are you ready? Let's get started. Before starting, I'd like to make a disclaimer here first. Guys, the main motivation of these videos is not to give you exact details down to pennies how much a pilot can earn from Riyadh Air, but I would like to give you a rough estimate and some salary ranges so that you can compare what you can expect if you go to Middle East and what is this salary compared to the rest of the Middle Eastern companies. Therefore, my numbers will be rough values. Please, if you're willing to apply Riyadh Air anytime in future, don't reference my video. Please go ahead and wait until you get your official letter from the company. Alright, quick update. As of now, late 2025, Riyadh Air still didn't start flying commercially. As of now, they only had 2 flights, one over the Riyadh city, and the first commercial flight, however, took place in October 26, 2025 from Riyadh to London. And in this flight, there was no passenger. So the company basically flew their employees and some guests from Riyadh to London. And there was a second flight of Riyadh Air. But there's something to say. In 2026, they're starting their commercial flight finally with the passengers. Government of Saudi Arabia is really too much emphasis on this airline, and in the future they're trying to make this airline the largest, biggest and most successful airline in the Middle East. So we are not sure if it is gonna reach that point in a very short time frame, but we will see. But definitely I can say that Saudi government is trying really hard to make the Riyadh Air one of the best airlines in the world. Alright, I'm taking you now Riyadh Air's pilot career website. As of now, late 2025, we have 3 jobs opening, and one of them is 787 first officer, the another one 787 captain, and the last one is technical pilot Boeing. So I'm just excluding technical pilot Boeing section because most pilots won't be eligible for this kind of job openings. This is mainly for those people who had worked as a technical pilot or fully technical pilot. As of now, the web page is not that clear. You can apply for the job, but there is not detailed information about the salaries and other entitlement that you can get from the job. Therefore, I had to talk with other pilots that have been offered the job through emails, because unfortunately, as of now, there is nothing that we can see how much a pilot can make in a month or in a year from Riyadh Air on their official webpage. In this video, briefly, I will mention the salary section, what I was expecting in 2024, and we will compare it with the actual data that we have right now. All right, I'll take you back to 2024. And what I am expecting for wide-body captain right now, total compensation package somewhere around $22,000 to $25,000 per month, including basic salary, including flight hours, including accommodation allowance, education allowance, and of course there will be insurance and there will be a good profit sharing scheme. As a first officer, I'm expecting somewhere around $13,000 to $14,000, and on top of that profit sharing, and on top of that education allowance. But the most important thing, what I'm expecting them to have, accommodation allowance paid as cash, commuting contract option, so that you can attract pilots. So I would like to tell it first before saying any number. To be honest, captain side was okay. That's exactly what I was waiting for. But I must say that all in all, it is kind of a little bit disappointing for those pilots who wanted to apply Riyadh Air, because I have a bunch of friends in Emirates and in Turkish Airlines. They were expecting to have a better contract than their current jobs. Therefore, I must say that they got a little bit sad about that, because at least they were expecting to, commute or get a better contract, but those numbers are pretty much copy paste of typical Middle Eastern airline. And in fact, at some point I must say that Emirates is way better than Riyadh Air initial offerings. I'll start with the captain part first. We can conclude it is safe to say that the captain's salary for Riyadh Air right now is somewhere around $13,000 to $15,000, and housing allowance somewhere around $5,000 to $5,500. Don't forget, those are initially offered with their own local currency, but I'm trying to exchange rate towards the US dollar for everybody to understand better. Don't forget, there is no accommodation provided, so you need to take care of your own accommodation with this money. So $5,000 to $5,500 a month is not that bad money. However, if you're living in the Middle East, if you want to live in a compound where everybody is an expat foreigner, everything will be extremely expensive. Therefore, have due diligence and make your own research before even going there. Try to understand how much you could spend as a rent, especially if you are planning to move to Riyadh with your own family, because you cannot live in a one-bedroom apartment in that case. And then you will be provided around $1,500 transportation allowance, and they say that you might be expected to get somewhere around $25,000 to $3,000 flying pay. This is more or less same as Emirates. As you know, Emirates also paying very little amount of salary portion as a flying pay, but those are really not important numbers, because at the end of the day, salary is the main, like basic salary is the main chunk of your income. You might get 2 months bonus each year, one in Ramadan and one, I don't know, but they say based on productivity. Therefore, you might expect to get it at the end of the financial year. Each company's financial year is different. So as far as I remember, the last day of either March or April was the last day of the financial year in Emirates. I think it's gonna be the same in Riyadh Air as well. So you might expect to get another bonus if the company makes good. But I don't know about that, if this 2 months of bonus is guaranteed or not. We need to make some researches about that. Hey, by the way, if you know the answer, please go down the comments below and send your comments so we can get to know what's going on about the bonuses, because this is something that's still gray for me. I didn't want to say anything 100% without knowing it. That being said, let's continue with the annual leave. We can conclude that it is really standard, straightforward 42 days of annual leave. It is same all around Middle Eastern companies. Therefore, there's nothing much to talk about it. It's a good 42 days of vacation. Medical insurance is good, but you're not covered in Canada and in the United States, unless most probably you are a citizen of these countries. This is exactly how it is in Emirates as well. But the good part, everybody was waiting for that, right? Commuting contract. Everybody was so eager to learn how it is, because everybody wanted to have a commuting contract. Nobody offers a great commuting contract in Middle Eastern, and therefore everybody was thinking that Riyadh Air will be the first one. However, it is still disappointing for me. As of now, I'm working in the United States. I am making my own commuting contract a month on, a month off, with zero pay cut. But however, you might expect to get 20 to 25% less if you do the commuting contract. And also, what I've been told, you can only go for commuting contract once you finish your training. Second, you should be out of your probation period. Now we are roughly talking 6 months of probation and 3 to 6 months of the training part. You can earliest convert yourself to commuting contract after 9 months or maybe after a year. Therefore, still you need to stay there, like in training and probation period. And after that, based on seniority, you can switch to commuting contract. But what I've been told, if you go for commuting contract, you are not entitled to get accommodation allowance, and total compensation also will be less than normal paycheck that you were supposed to get if you don't choose to go to commuting contract. Now let's talk about the first officer salaries. I must admit that I was in the low end in 2024 while I was talking about the first officer salaries, but what I have right now, a first officer can expect to earn between $8,500 to $9,000 a month basic salary, and you can expect to get some raise along the way towards the captain upgrade, right? And don't forget, this is also based on company's discretion. As usual, all Middle Eastern carriers are not guaranteeing you to increase salaries no matter what. You can expect to 4,000 to 4,500 accommodation allowance. There's always some little difference between the captain and first officer accommodation allowance, and then you can still expect $2,000 to $3,000 flight pay, because it is very little money at the end of the day. It doesn't make that impact on salaries if you're a first officer or a captain, because no one cares about the flying portion. As I said to you before, your main portion of the salary comes from the basic salary. And same story, up to 2 months bonus, 42 days of vacation, and then you get health insurance. And I already forget to mention about the captain and first officer part. You need to get also education allowance as well. But don't forget, you are only entitled to get the education allowance, one, if you're willing to move to Riyadh, and second, if you have a kid. So if you don't have a kid in the school age, you're not gonna get paid for that. So it's not kind of direct cash benefit that you can get from the company. That being said, now let's talk about the end of service benefit. And this is something like, as you may know, in the Middle East, there is no pension for expats, but there is something called end of service benefit. This is totally disaster for me when I learned if it is correct for the Riyadh Air, because Emirates has something like 401k in the United States, and it is different than the rest of Middle Eastern airline, because most of the companies in Middle East, they offer end of service benefit. However, Emirates has different kind of retirement plan for their pilots, and it is called Provident Fund. It's basically much better than end of service benefit. However, in Riyadh Air, I've been told that you're entitled to get the end of service benefit for each year that you work, but this is only after 5 years. So if it is correct, you get nothing if you resign earlier than 5 years. Let's assume that you leave the company after 6 years, you're entitled to get 6 months of your basic salary. It is not bad, but it is not good at all. Imagine you staying in the company for 30 years. At the end of the day, they pay you 30 months of your basic salary, which is not even $500,000. This money won't be enough to sustain your current quality of life. However, on the Emirates side, this is totally different, because you can make millions of dollars if you stayed in the company for 30 years. This is kind of a little bit disappointment for me, but don't forget why they're doing this. I would like to show you another expectation from the past. Saudi Arabia right now is the only country in the Middle East that can sustain their workforce. They are hiring people for now. In the future, they will have enough pilots, and they will replace their expat pilots with their current citizens. This is normal. Each countries are doing that because there are millions of people, unlike Gulf countries, and there is no way that there will be tons of expats after 30 years in Riyadh Air. Therefore, you shouldn't expect such a great contract. I mentioned that in the past in 2024, and I will show you one screenshot from a pilot forum, and you can see what this guy wrote about that. I totally agree with that. You can check my video from 2024 as well. This is typical. Before COVID era, there were a bunch of expat pilots in Turkish Airlines. I'm from Turkey, and now they're almost all gone. Why? Because Turkish Airlines had enough time to replace their growth with the Turkish pilots. Therefore, they don't need any foreign pilots. Therefore, guys, while you're making your decision, think about that. How long you would like to stay in this country, in Saudi Arabia or in UAE or in Qatar. That's why make your plan accordingly. I can assure you that if you were based in Dubai or Qatar, you can stay there as long as you want, because after 20 years, there will be still enough room for expats. However, it is not the same in Saudi. All right. Please bear in mind that. In this video, I would like to give my 2 cents about commuting contract as well. I've asked these questions, but I didn't get the answer, to be honest. If you're allowed to have commuting contract in Riyadh Air, are you gonna pay for your own commuting flights, or will they provide you a commuting tickets from another airlines? Because they're new, right? They are not flying many destinations. It's gonna be gradual increase. Therefore, you might need to travel to Riyadh through other airlines, especially if you're in the first 5 years of the company, because there won't be enough airplane, there won't be enough destination in their network. If you're gonna pay your own ticket, actually it's gonna be a little bit less salary. If you wanna travel in business, it's gonna be very less salary that you will get at the end of the month. There's something to consider as well. To be honest, in my opinion, as of now, Riyadh Air is not offering great commuting contract, because if you're a captain, let's say 787 captain in somewhere around the world, more or less you're making the same salary. Some Asian companies in Japan, Vietnam, Taiwan, they offer more or less same commuting contract. Why would someone change their company? Because there's not much wide-body captain in the world compared to narrow-body captain. So therefore, I can easily say that it's not going to attract many pilots. But if you think differently, as usual, please go down, send your comments. I'll read each of them and we can discuss. Would you give up from your own wide-body captain position in any company in the world to come to Riyadh Air? I would like to hear from you guys. If you're a member of Riyadh Air already, if you're working for them already, please, I would like to hear from you as well. Are my numbers are correct, or do I have any discrepancy in that? And I can say that compared to 2024, numbers are pretty much solid, and that's how you're getting paid in Middle East. Before concluding this video, I would like to talk about the interview process of the Riyadh Air. So guys, basically, there are 2 steps here. The first one is the initial online assessment part and the assessment part or interview process itself. The initial online assessment part consists of 3 different sub-segments. The first one is motivational questions. Why do you want to come to Riyadh Air? Something like that. This is a very straightforward process, and you can expect this kind of questions from each job interview, especially if you're applying for the pilot positions, right? So regardless of which airline you're applying, you are expected to answer these questions. Therefore, please prepare to answer these questions, why you would like to come to Riyadh Air. And then you will get some kind of sort of English assessment. They would like to see your English communication skills before inviting you to the real assessment, and you might expect to get some basic ADPL questions. Those are the 3 steps that you need to fulfill before they invite you to real assessment. If you can pass the first assessment part, that's how it's called, let's say, initial online assessment, now you're invited to go to interview process. As of now, interview process is an online process. You don't have to travel to Riyadh to have interview process. That being said, and it is still very straightforward. Most airlines in the world are following exactly the same order. You can expect that in interview, online interview, most probably you'll have 1 HR or 2 HR people and 1 pilot, and they will try to assess your skills and abilities based on some questions that you will be faced. Therefore, it is really important to do some researches before going to this interview. At that time, I can assure you that you'll be asked some challenging questions, especially if you're a captain. Tell me about a time where you had struggled to communicate with your first officer, or if you're a first officer, you might be asked, tell me about the time you had to say no to your captain, and they would like to see how you manage the crisis or unfavorable situation. And this is a good tool for you guys at this stage to study tell me about the time concept. So this is a standard aviation interview process. Therefore, if you follow some logic on that, it is easier for you to answer this kind of questions. So I can assure you that there will be HR questions and technical part of this assessment as well. After the interview part, if you pass that one, then you need to go through psychometric online test. You will need to answer based on some certain data set of questions. So you will be asked the same questions over and over again with different kind of grammar or paraphrasing of the previous questions. And then you need to be consistent on these questions. Therefore, please be yourself and don't try to trick the system. And that's the only reason maybe you might fail, and that's what I've been told while I was preparing this kind of assessments. Therefore, be yourself, answer the questions as honestly as possible, and then wait for the next one. And next one should be most probably the panel interview, also known as technical part. If you pass this technical part, because I cannot give detailed information about technical part, because most probably you will be provided some kind of PDF file where you need to study all this stuff, and you're expected to know Dreamliner, system knowledge, memory items, and all this kind of stuff. Since I'm not flying 787, it's very hard for me to give information about that, but you need to be prepared for that. As of now, they don't hire anybody non-type rated, so therefore you should expect to get some questions regarding Dreamliner or 787. Thank you so much for watching me. I hope you enjoyed the video. As usual, before going, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button to get the notifications. See you in the next video. Bye bye.